Hello, everybody, and we've got another podcast chat here. Something with a bit different this time, though. We're not talking about people and humans and the global chaos. We're going to be talking about animals. And we've got Rebecca here, who is an animal communicator, and she's going to be talking with us about animals.
Hi everybody.
And you've just set up a YouTube channel, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. How have you started posting on it yet?
Yeah, I've done a few videos on there at the moment. I've done because I've got two channels because with my Instagram page, Spirit Journey
Mm,
of Enlightenment, I kind of cover both aspects of being an animal communicator and a spiritual
yeah.
medium. But with YouTube, because what I found is people tend to like they're either here because they're really interested in the animal communication or they're more
Yeah.
here for their own journey. So I set up two channels on YouTube. You've got the Words of the Wild, which is all about my animal communication. So that will
Yeah.
have channeling and just kind of talking about how I communicate with animals and understanding a bit more about the animal
Mm,
kingdom
mm.
and Mother Earth. And then Spirit Journey of Enlightenment, the same as my Instagram, is my other channel, more about like the human experience and navigating these crazy times.
Yeah, yeah. It is a crazy time to be alive, but it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
For those that have never heard of it, what is animal spirit communication?
So
Some
animal
people haven't heard about it.
communication. No, it's interesting because I sometimes find when I say to people what I do, they're like, "Oh, right." Um, the best way I find to describe it is like being a an interpreter. So you'll have, you might have the human, the animal, perhaps if they have a cat or a dog, and then you have me in the middle, like the interpreter. So
Yeah.
I will work on an energetic level to connect into the energy and the spirit team of the animal. And then they will facilitate that connection working with my spirit team
Mm,
as well, so that via kind of like an
mm.
energy link, a bit
Yeah.
like how we're having this Zoom conversation.
Mm,
The energy link will enable us to be able to communicate because obviously with spirit you're working with energy. There's no language barriers. Like if you were speaking to a person from a
mm.
different country, you don't have the language barrier. So it's really like being an interpreter. So when I'll speak to the animal, I'm speaking on an energy level, communicating with them. And then they will work in a variety of ways. They'll
Mm,
either show me images, speak just like we're speaking
mm,
now. So we're
mm.
having an actual conversation. Or they'll give me feelings. So I'll feel like if they're uncomfortable in a certain area, they'll give me that feeling. And I always call them like film strips. They'll show me if they're showing me perhaps a past life
Mm.
or perhaps in the case of like rescue animals, they're showing me their past life, but on
Yeah.
Earth, I get like a film strip that will show, and it's like them walking me through that kind of time,
Mm.
as it were. So yeah, that kind of really sums it up. It's the best way I've found to describe it is like being an interpreter.
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And I think, many people like yourself, and I can communicate as well with animals, and I think even children can communicate with animals.
Yeah.
I've often shared a story on this channel, my channel, that my first ever best friend was a tree, because trees can communicate, flowers can communicate, grass can communicate.
Yeah.
We've got a house plant at the minute that Gary got as a gift, and it's actually my friend now. It talks
Oh,
and it's flourishing. Rake it every day, water it, look after it, talk to it. Um, what made you go into animal communication?
it wasn't really a choice, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't a choice. Um, I've always loved animals. When I
Mm,
was a lot younger, I used to always think I'd want to be a vet so I could take care of animals. But
yeah.
I was terrible. I used to faint a lot as a child. Any mention of blood or seeing anything gory, and I was on the floor. So that never happened because I was like, I wouldn't be able to deal with that side of it. So it wasn't until I moved house in 2017
Mm,
and I needed to do a lot of renovation work. And you know yourself with the work
mm,
you've just had done,
yeah.
it's like a building site in the house, it's chaos. And I think for people that kind of are empathic, you
Mm,
feel suffocated, don't you? So I
mm,
used to
mm,
spend a lot of time in my garden in the summer months, sitting out there doing my admin. And it started off with I have a lot of birds that come to the garden, but I had this dove that used to come to the bird table whenever I was sat out doing my work. So I would kind of acknowledge it and be like, oh, hi, hello, welcome to
yeah.
my garden. And each time I was out there, it would come a little bit closer until one day it was sat on the edge of the table next to me. And I was chatting away to it. And I suddenly realized I could hear it talking back,
Mm-hmm.
and we were having a conversation. But because I've been connected to spirit ever since I was a child, it was surprising but not, if that makes sense. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is new. Okay, I guess I speak to animals now. And so I had that, and then in 2018, I got my first dog as an adult, and I found exactly the same thing. We were just talking to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it just massively helped with building the bond. And it kind of snowballed from there, really. It was almost like, um, I finished, I was working in an admin role on a maternity cover
Mm-hmm.
contract. And when that came to an end, it just really made sense. Like, okay, now I have time to perhaps, work for spirit full time. And so, yeah, it just kind of, I guess it chose me rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And I think there's going to be more of this work needed because we know we had this conversation when we were spoken privately a few weeks back that there's so many pets now that are struggling
Yeah.
because of what's going on in their house. And I gently and try and look, because I do animal reiki, and I always try and be gentle about this because it brings up so much.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of animals are picking up what's going on in their home,
They do
like
100%.
children do. There's a lot of anxious dogs and cats and all kinds of anxious pets out there at the minute.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's a tough one. It's always a tough one to
mhm,
deal with. I've had clients before that, they've said that their dogs have suddenly become really unsettled, and then like,
mhm,
well, I don't know what it is. I can't see
mhm,
anything, nothing's different. And then you like you said, you tried to be gentle of like, are you
mhm,
stressed? What's going on in your life?
mhm,
Because it
mhm,
seems like they're unsettled because they're actually picking up.
mhm,
We have in the house, we're like, our energy is really attached to
mhm,
them, isn't
mhm,
it?
mhm,
And I always say, um, not in a horrible way, but we have the opportunity to open the door and leave. If we're feeling stressed, we can go out and
mhm,
do something that kind of resets us. But the animal is effectively trapped in the house with us until
mhm,
we say,
mhm,
we're going for a walk or let's go in the car. We
mhm,
kind of control their lives more. So it's harder for them. And I think that's where I always think my work is really important, to be able to speak for them, to give them a voice, and to
mhm,
help people to
mhm,
understand that it's not in a horrible way, but your emotions and what
mhm,
you're dealing
mhm,
with could be imprinting on them. So yeah, I
mhm.
think you're right. It is really
Yeah.
needed.
And I think it's the same with children, isn't it? That they can absorb. Because if you think about when we're sad and you've got a pet, you'll pick it up and you'll cuddle it, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But you're like with an adult, sometimes as an adult you can say, I can't deal with this right now. I'll ring you in an hour when I've calmed. Oh, what that? Was that in my? Oh,
Is that in your room?
make sure nothing, no more work needed. Don't know what. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it did sound like something fell down.
That's weird. Yeah, because that mic should. Anyway, it's weird. Um, maybe we're hitting on something there. Maybe somebody's just thrown
What was
something at
that?
the
They're
telly. They're like,
here.
we're not listening to this. There's not wrong with my dog. But yeah, it's we can say to an adult, I can't deal with this. I'll ring you tonight when I've calmed down and I'll have a chance to process it. But an animal can't do that.
No, and I actually had with my own dog, she had dogs can sometimes get things called hot spots, which is like,
Mm,
it's like a little bit of sore skin. And if basically if it doesn't get treated, it can spread and get worse, and it's not very pleasant. My dog had a really tiny one on her paw that I hadn't
mm,
noticed. And I can't remember what I was doing. It was around a time I had loads of stuff going on. When you've got like deadline after deadline and you're like, I'm trying to get all this stuff done. And I was really stressed. And I suddenly noticed this thing on her paw, and I was like, why didn't you tell me? Because I'm always like, if you need
mm.
anything, you come and let me know. And I felt so sad. She said, because you were really stressed and busy, and I didn't want to add to it.
Yeah,
And so they do know, they're very aware of what we're going through, and they do pick up on our emotions.
yeah. Yeah, it's a sad one, isn't it? It's a sad
Yeah.
one, but I think it's one we've got to be mindful of. It's like I went through a stage of I just have to lock down, really, because I was going through that transitionary period of realizing we weren't going to have children. So I wanted something to fill the gap. I'll admit to it, and I went into I've got to get a dog. I've got to get a dog.
Mhm.
But I did have a dog when I was at home with mum and dad, but I wanted a dog. And we were looking for a dog, and we went into this charity that was dubious, I know, and I backed out when I realised what
Oh,
was happening, going abroad and stealing dogs and all of that.
oh no.
Yeah. But they claim they're doing it because they're abandoned. But a lot of, yeah, I just, my guides were like, that, don't do it. And it was almost like I had a big wake up call, and it was like, yes, I love dogs. I think dogs are amazing, but why am I getting a dog? And I had to have that conversation with myself of, I'm getting a dog because I want a baby. And I think that's happening a lot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think a really sad thing was during the lockdowns, because people still wanted to go out, a
Mm,
lot of people got puppies. And I already saw it after 6 months, people putting them up for sale, or, they'd rushed into getting breeds that didn't fit their lifestyle
yeah.
because they wanted it for kind of for their own
Mm,
reasons rather
mm,
than, does a dog fit my lifestyle? Is it
mm,
high energy? Do I go out a lot? Is that going to
mm,
work?
mm,
All of that stuff. It's a massive commitment, and I think it's quite sad that it's easy to get rid of an animal. It's too easy
mm,
to get rid of an animal,
mm,
whereas you
mm.
wouldn't do that with a child, would you? It's the same
Yeah.
level of commitment, which, yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, and I think as well there was all the thing about crime as well over like pugs and dachshunds and all of the kind
Yeah.
of breeds that where houses were getting wrecked and people actually going out walking dogs and getting them stolen because they became like hot, you know what I mean? Hot product.
Yeah, but the
Um,
price went up massively, and that was
mm,
sad as well because
mm,
it was like you're kind of losing, you're losing the aspect of like they're a living being,
mm.
and the price was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah, I mean
bad.
thousands of pounds when we were looking. It was like this is. It reminded me when we got our dog, the family dog, years ago from at the RSPCA, and
Mhm.
I think you just gave a donation back then, compared to the thousands of pounds. And then we went to the pet centre, local pet centre, to have a look at veterinary costs and just to be sensible. And it was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
the cost of food, everything. And it was like, we've got to be realistic. It's not that we couldn't afford it, but it's a dedication. It's not just something you can just, oh, sod it, you know. Like even being a
No,
video, now your dog starts howling, you can't just leave it. And
no,
you've got
that's
to make
it.
sure that your lifestyle fits in with it. But people weren't, were they?
No, and that's really sad. You find like I've said to you before, I've got a husky, and they're super clever. They need a
Mm,
lot of mental
mm,
stimulation, and
mm,
I did a lot of research before I got her. Um, but I love going out hiking, so that's great because she loves
mm,
exercise.
mm,
But also, if I wasn't working from home, I definitely wouldn't have had her because
mm,
they need a lot of mental stimulation, and they also like the company.
mm,
So it's all about, does it fit into my lifestyle? Because they suffer if you
mm,
get them and, they're a dog that loves to go out walking and you're like,
mm.
well, I'm a couch potato. I don't want to go anywhere. They
Yeah,
suffer. It's not just that they're there for you. What do you bring to their life as well? And I think we often
yeah.
overlook that.
Yeah, or we overwalk them because you need to be out and about, or whatever, or because we do a lot of traveling in spring summer, and it's like that'd mean I know this is triggering kennels or finding places that
Yeah.
accept it, but even then, it's not. You know, I've got a hotel here that takes dogs, but it's still not the same as being able to open your front door and say go into the garden.
No,
You're
because
in a
it's a
hotel.
different environment. And
Yeah,
again, I mean, we've had that with ours. She's a sensitive soul, bless her,
yeah.
and she's very good now, and it's definitely a lot easier now. There are more places
Mm,
that accept dogs. You've got Airbnbs that are animal
mm,
friendly, and it's a lot easier. But you still have to remember that we go, and like if you go abroad for a holiday, it takes you a couple of days to adjust,
mm,
doesn't it?
mm,
And they
mm,
have the same thing. They need to adjust to sleeping in a new place
mm.
or having their dinner put down in a different place, and we don't
Yeah.
think that because we're like, we're
I
going away and
actually,
it's
that's
fun.
not ever dawned on me as that, but
Yeah.
it's especially because the dog that chooses you, if you're sensitive, will be sensitive. It'll be
Absolutely.
more in connection.
Yeah. And my dog won't. Anytime I go away, the first night I will have to sleep on the floor next to her because she will not settle. She'll pace and she'll
Mm.
cry and she'll want to keep going out in the garden to get fresh air every single time. After that, she's fine. But it's that adjustment period of like, this is a new place, where am I?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like yourself as well with your energy work, I mean, we can do our energy work anywhere, but they will have an energy system where they will connect to their guides and their kingdom and through certain portals and etc. in certain ways in their land and everything, the energy of their land, and to just,
Yeah.
because it does affect us going away.
Yeah, it does.
I can be whacked after going away, even just like an overnighter. It's because you've got all the different hotel rooms with the different energies in.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think people do forget that as well, that
Mm,
animals pick up on energy. And I think even if you're not perhaps sensitive to energy, your animal will be, because
mm, mm,
they vibrate at a very different level to us. So they're not kind of closed off from those things. They're all aware of energy all of the time.
mm,
Um, and so yeah, we have to kind of try and be mindful that it does impact on them. It's not just, you go for a
mm.
really long walk and they're physically tired, but
Yeah,
they're emotionally and mentally
yeah,
tired as well.
yeah. And do you think as well, with the way the world's changing, with the shift in dimension, that animals are becoming more connected and sensitive, like with
Yeah, I
humans?
think that a lot of the work that I've done, and it is funny because when I connect a lot to, not so much with my clients' animals, but with the wild animals that want to have a message come forward,
Mm,
um, they're always saying the same thing, about us working together and
mm,
about us slowing down and not always kind of like looking ahead, just kind of taking things step by step.
mm, mm,
And I think for them as well, it's energetically really tiring because they have chosen to step forward to help us more.
mm,
And I said this a while back. I was just getting this recurring message from them that they were going to be coming more into our lives
mm,
to help humans to understand how we need to work together and to grow.
mm.
So I think, yeah, for the animal kingdom, they're doing a lot of work for us to help us, and perhaps we're not that aware of it right now, but I think it will become more apparent the more we kind of level up and see new things. I think it will be like, oh wow, yeah, the animals are really doing some work as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Do you think as well, um, veterinary places, do you think they're going to start working with people like yourself, or should they? I think they should.
I think they should.
Mm,
I had a really hard time with my vets, a couple of
mm,
things. And when you just get that feeling, like you were saying at the rescue, you're just like, no, something's not right. And I
mm,
could feel that they weren't being honest with me. They were just trying to make some money. And so I kind of thought, I needed to kind of come back and be like, okay, energetically, what's the best thing for my dog? What does
mm,
she want? How does she feel? And I actually found a really lovely holistic vet. There are vets out there that work, they do a bit of both,
mm,
they do the necessary stuff that we would consider a regular vet doing, but they also work more with the body
mm,
and more energetically as
mm,
well, to understand on a deeper emotional level. And that I've found as well that they're, like if you go somewhere and you're a nervous patient as a
mm,
person,
mm.
they're a lot more understanding, rather than that process of like, oh, come on, you'll be fine, just get in here, and
Yeah,
we'll do
yeah,
whatever. They're a lot more understanding and give more time to the animals to let them have that emotional kind of
yeah.
feeling and to go through it all. So yeah, I do hope that there will be more available, because I know in my part of the country where I am down south, I'm in the
Mm,
southeast, there's not a lot. When you look for them, there's
mm.
not a lot. We had to travel like 2 hours to get to ours. So yeah, I do hope that there will be more vets looking at that side of things.
I think there will be. It's going to take time, isn't it? Because I know it sounds awful, but veterinary is a very money-making thing. It's like being a doctor or a private
Yeah,
surgeon. It's big money, especially with
it
the farm
is.
animals. Um, so it's going to take some educating. Do you think like people like yourself can go around and educate things, or educate things, but do talks and things, or social? How do we break through that? 'Cause it's like when I started the animal Reiki, and I thought I had these visions of vets contacting me, and also it didn't happen. It's like, how do you even break through that? Do you write to these people? Do you go into these practices, or
I don't know. I
hard, isn't
think
it?
it's really hard. I think that it's weird because where we're, especially in the last few years, people seem so much more open to like
Mm,
spirituality and their own journey.
mm,
There seems to still be this block with the animal kingdom. And
mm,
I do a lot of work with nature as well, like you were saying, like talking to trees and things like that. I've had some amazing
mm,
wisdom from
mm,
trees,
mm.
but there's still this like, that's a bit weird, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? And I feel like we need to get that in. um yeah, breaking through it is like, how do you break through it? And I guess it's people opening their hearts to their own
Mm,
animals,
mm,
wanting to understand them more, that will
mm,
then lead them off into that area. A bit like with the way I ended up working, really. I always loved animals. I
mm,
respected them. I didn't understand them. And it wasn't until I had that actual connection of being
Mm,
able to talk to them, it suddenly like blew it all open and was like, oh my God, animals have emotions, they have
mm,
likes and
mm.
dislikes. Um, sometimes they want to go out, sometimes they don't. They're very similar to us. Um, but like I said, they vibrate at a higher level. So they're perhaps more understanding on an energy level, whereas we've got to learn that. We're still trying to break
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's
Mm.
interesting. And I think as well, animals are reaching out more for healing in a way that I don't know if it's because I've always been attuned to Reiki for years, but lately, especially since the pandemic, like animals, birds, the first time I realised it, we'd gone to Northumberland, was it just as they started to open back up again?
Mm-hmm.
And this bird came over and its leg, see, it's like the leg or wing was damaged. And it hobbled over and literally it stood in front of me.
Oh,
I was like, at first I didn't realise what was happening, and I thought, oh, okay. And I just literally, and I think animals receive healing quicker than us
yes.
because literally it was like, boom, few seconds, and you could see it judder up, and literally, I'm not joking, went.
Oh,
And it was like, and it kind of thanked me as well. And I was like, wow. Then at my old house, the same thing happened. It was a magpie came in with a damaged wing or leg and just stood there whilst I was doing some gardening. And I was
oh.
like, again, and it just went.
They know, they
Um,
do, animals do
yeah.
know. And I think they're attracted as well. Like they know the kind of work you
Mm,
do because they
mm,
feel it.
mm,
Yeah, I definitely do think that they seek you out.
mm.
So when you're doing the Reiki with them, how are you communicating? Because Reiki's not, it's something I'm interested in, but it's not something I really know anything about. So how do you communicate with the Reiki?
Same way, would you mean like how would I communicate with the animal?
Yeah.
Same way that I'd communicate, because I do it all distance, same way that I'd communicate with the higher self of the client. But it's hard to explain because it's different from with a client. Because a client can be, and I've said this to clients can be really closed down, even though they've paid for a session. It's almost like there's a physical animal there, but it's talking to you like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's like and a person you've got to just be gentle and take your time. And I'm gentle with the animals, but with the animals, it's like boom.
Yeah, I think, like you said,
Um,
they're more open. With people, I think
mm,
we get in our own way, don't we? Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember going for a reflexology and I always wanted it, never had it. I'm a bit funny about feet.
Mm,
But the whole time I was having it done, I could feel how tense I was because I was thinking, oh, touching my feet, touching my
mm,
feet.
mm,
And so I think we get in our own way. But with animals,
yeah.
they don't. Like you said, they are more open to it because they know it's going to benefit them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like the other day we were walking and they were just walking along after we'd been for afternoon tea, and this dog was like Labrador, oldish Labrador, was walking along, and she stopped and she looked straight at me
Oh.
and she galloped. And even the owner was like, and it was funny because the owner caught up to us, and I was talking to the owner in the physical, but I was also talking to the dog in the energetic. And it was in my head, your third eye was like, show me where the pain is, and she rolled onto her back and showed me.
Oh,
But even energetically, the part of the stomach, she showed me. And
yeah.
again, it was very, I didn't like, because obviously the person was there, but I just stroked. Do you know what I mean? And the owner had no idea what was going on. The dog did.
Yeah.
And again, up, and it was like, and they do a little bit of a judder as they accept the energy. It's strange. And it's like, yeah, perfect.
Oh, that's so nice.
Um,
Yeah, it's lovely. It's hard sometimes, I think,
mm,
because if we all had that ability to kind of
mm,
recognize that in our animals,
mm,
whereas I think I don't even think people do it in a horrible way. It's almost like, they come home from work, the dog or the cat's there,
mm,
and it's almost like you take it for granted. It's like they live with you, you see them all the time.
mm,
But if you actually really tuned into them, it would open up a whole new world of like, and that's what I always say is like part of my job is to strengthen the bond between
mm,
humans and animals
mm,
because we're a lot more similar than we realize. And
mm,
they love to share wisdom with us,
mm,
but they
mm,
also want to help us. They don't want to
mm,
see us struggling, but they also want us to understand them better.
mm. Definitely. And I also think as well the fact that this awful trend at the minute of trying to humanize animals, doing birthday. I'm going to trigger everybody. I'm here to trigger people though. Birthday parties, birthday cakes.
Yeah.
I some of the stuff I see. We've got. I don't think they watch me, but we've got a family member that honestly like. proper birthday parties for her dogs. Balloons, banners, cakes. It's, puppuccino. Is that that's the thing? I think is it costs to do with the puppuccino.
Oh
One
yeah.
of them, one of them, the puppuccino. And it's like,
Yeah,
and it's
I've
just
done
like,
it in the past. I have done
yeah,
it in the past, like
yeah,
for the first few birthdays, and I still do. I get my dog
mm,
presents and I wrap them up, but
yeah,
that's
yeah,
more like, that's
yeah.
a mental stimulation
That
thing as
that's
well.
normal thing. That's a normal thing. But
Yeah.
I'm talking like,
But yeah, I
yeah,
really struggle with the dressing animals up. That
mm,
really bugs me
mm,
because yeah, they might tolerate it, but
mm,
they don't want to do it because they're
yeah,
animals. And this is it's always the thing, like they're very aware they're
mm,
animals, they know what they are.
mm, mm,
And like you said, it's us trying to
mm,
humanize them.
mm,
And I think that kind of leads on to we spoke before about being, being mindful of the way that we talk to our animals as
mm,
well. Um, if you're like saying, oh, oh, he's just showing off, he's barking because he's showing
mm,
off,
mm,
and it's like, no, that's not what that is. But you saying that, you're attaching that kind of like
mm,
negative
mm,
energy
mm.
rather than understanding. And again, I don't think people always do it to be horrible. I think
No, no,
sometimes
I
people
think
do
it's,
it to cover up embarrassment if they're out and the dog's barking a lot. Um, or perhaps just from a place of not knowing.
mm,
But I
mm,
think we have to be really careful. It's like, when if we're saying to our dogs, well, you're being a little sod or,
mm,
whatever,
mm,
that's like firing that energy at them.
yeah,
And even if we're not saying it in a really hateful way, it's still kind of that
mm,
negative energy going on to them, which does
mm,
affect them.
yeah. It's also makes us question as whether we are fit for pets at the minute, especially some people that are not. You
Yeah.
know, not in any kind of spiritual connection. With the birthdays, what I mean is like there's actual cafes, and you'll know this, that you can take dogs to that do. Do you know, you can get people to do your child's party. They'll do your dog
Yeah.
party. That's what I mean. So I don't want people
Yeah.
thinking don't celebrate your dog's birthday, but like you say, we've taken them into these cafes, like these cat cafes and stuff, and I just I don't even know how they work. Have they actually got cats in that cafe? Some
Yeah.
have. And you think, do those cats live in the cafe? Do you take your own cat in there as well?
No, I don't. I don't think you take your cat. I think you
Yeah.
just go and you get surrounded by cats while you sit and have your coffee. There's I think it's in Japan. There's a place that has do you know what the capybaras are? They're like
No.
giant guinea pigs. I love them. I fed them once. They are amazing. But they have this cafe with these massive capybaras. Like
Mm,
you can sit down
mm,
and have a coffee and have one sat next to you. And while yeah, it's lovely because you get to experience being around the animals, I
mm,
don't think it's that lovely for the animals, to be honest. You've got people
mm,
sitting in there talking loud, and again, like what I said earlier, they're trapped in that building.
mm,
They're not
mm.
going, this is too loud, I'm leaving. They're
No.
there and they can't leave. And I find it with my own dog because she is a sensitive soul. And if we go somewhere, I try to always go somewhere where I can sit outside
Mm,
because I know then she likes the fresh air. um, if we go somewhere and it starts to get busy, she'll start pouring at me and she'll start crying because
mm,
like, mum, it's getting too loud. I'm getting overwhelmed.
mm,
And I saw, oh, this was years ago before I had my dog. I was hiking in the Peak District and went into a pub for some lunch, and there was a person with a dog tied on a really short lead under the table. They're sat there eating this massive cooked dinner, and the
mm,
dog's crying under the table with no treats, no food. And it's like, you're stuffing your face. I'm sure you've just been for a walk. Do you not think maybe the dog wants to eat too? Like, they're not an accessory. They're there to experience life with us, not,
mm,
it's yeah, it's a little bit difficult. And I think it's hard when I do the work I do. I know that they have feelings and emotions. And
mm,
so
mm.
to see that kind of treatment where they're just
Oh, you,
like, you're there to go on the walk with me as
yeah,
company, but when I'm sitting having my dinner, be quiet and don't be there, sort of thing. That's really hard.
yeah, yeah. It's hard. I think your job's possibly harder than mine because I think people are so sensitive with their animals, and never mind the fact that when you're doing because I've had it. I remember one particular session where it was like it wasn't the dog that had the anxiety, and I had to say to the person, and there was issues there, real issues, and that was it. I never saw her again. Then it was like she
Oh,
went, and it was like if only you could have just listened to me. Um, we could have helped those dogs, and actually, never mind help the dogs. We could have because I could double trouble me.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I could
Yeah.
do the dogs at the same time as do that, but.
Yeah.
It didn't work, and it's just like, God.
And that is really hard. It's, you can do all that work and you can bring forward the information,
Mm,
but it's up to the person to act on it. And that can
yeah,
be a really difficult part of the work I
mm,
do. If the animal's saying, oh, I really get stressed about this. Um, and then, there was a cat that really didn't want to be neutered. It was really
mm,
like, I don't want it, I don't want it. And the
oh,
answer was tough, it's happening. And that I really struggled with that because I was like, on an energy level, that animal knows what it wants for its body. And while it may not be practical
yeah,
from a
mm,
human point of
mm,
view, you know, are we respecting animals when we're not listening to them? Yeah, it is
mm.
hard.
Or even like, I'm not don't know that much about the dog breeding or even the cat breeding, but there's stories about the rape of dogs for dogs and dog
Yeah.
breeders, and I don't know how it was. It in the back in the day, would it have just been a natural organic thing? Your dog fell pregnant because she'd been out, and then you sold the dog, or you give it to a neighbour or
Yeah, I
whatever.
think so.
Whereas now, they're like cows where they're just breeded. And I just find it
Yeah, and
really
that's another
horrendous.
thing I wasn't really aware of
Mm,
until I started doing this work. And it's a physical thing. You're getting two dogs into a room together and you're
mm,
making them breed.
mm,
Whereas again, not all animals like each other. Just
mm,
like people, they pick up
mm,
on the energy. They
mm,
might not like the personality of the animal they're being paired
mm,
with. So yeah, there's a lot of moral stuff around that as well. Like, is that right? Is what we're doing right?
mm.
I also don't like, I have a real issue with these, what they call like designer dogs, where they're mixing breeds that have
Oh yeah,
totally different traits.
yeah.
Some are like physically strong, some are like, like lap dogs, and
Mm,
they're mixing them to make this cute thing. But actually, physically, that's not good for them. They're going to end up with lots of health problems. But we're doing that for vanity because we like the
mm,
way it looks.
mm. Humans. It's
Yeah, we got a
horrible,
lot
isn't
to
it?
learn.
I mean, the whole like food industry as well, and it's, it makes you think that have we got too many people on the planet that they just cannot sustain? Well, if you don't, if you've ever watched the challenge I did with James Herriot, that's not his real name. That was his
Oh,
um,
yeah.
the James Herriot series, and he said that the soul contract between animals and the food industry is changing. That they're not going to be willing to be used as food.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that's going to become, it's here now. And I think sometimes some of the diseases that we're going to be hearing about is the animals saying, and the issues with farming. I know it's a very sensitive subject, but, is it right how we're doing it? We're going to have to look at new ways of getting foods.
Yeah, we,
And
we need to be a lot kinder and a lot
mm,
more mindful, I
mm,
think. Just even some of the ways that animals are slaughtered
mm,
are just horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And you think
mm,
of the trauma that the
mm,
animal goes through,
mm,
there has to be better ways of living in harmony
mm,
because we are part
mm,
of the food chain.
mm, mm.
Everything living is part of the food chain,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
even the plants and the vegetables.
yeah.
But we have to look at how we're doing stuff. Everything is working on an energy level, and we have
Mm,
to have great respect for
mm.
everything.
Yeah, because this can be a trigger, but like when you're vegan and you can say, well, I don't eat live products, but you do, and we've got to be mindful of that a tomato that
Yeah,
you're about to eat has a soul.
absolutely. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
grow some of my own veg, and I like a mad woman. I'm out there talking to everything, the
yeah,
bees, the birds,
yeah.
everything. But even like blessing the soil, and when you go out and you're kind of tending to the things that you grow, if
Mm,
you're angry, that energy is going into
mm,
those things,
mm,
and if you're
mm,
growing vegetables, you're then eating all that anger that
mm,
you put
mm,
into them.
mm,
And I think you find this as well, like with animals, when animals live in very stressful environments, it's the same as people.
mm,
You'll find they have a lot of health problems
mm,
because it affects their energy. And it's the same as us. I think we have to completely look at everything
mm,
differently. We
mm,
have to realize that everything is energy. And
mm,
once we start looking at it like that, you're a lot more mindful in the way that you interact with the
mm,
world.
mm,
But it just gives you more understanding as well, like with our bodies. If you get a headache, it's too easy to quickly reach for something to kind of get rid of the pain rather
mm,
than saying, this is my body telling me it's not happy. Okay,
mm.
why aren't you happy? Have you got neck strain, eye strain? Have you been doing too much?
Yeah.
I didn't. I was somebody that I worked in a really stressful job years ago,
Mm,
and I used to take headache tablets every single day.
mm. Mm,
And it's only since I kind of shifted everything and started doing more work on myself, I was like, I haven't been listening to myself. I've been telling myself to shut up this whole time.
mm.
But it always comes back to like everything is energy, doesn't it?
Mm,
Every
mm,
single
mm.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like the women. I keep talking about this in videos lately. Everyone's going to get bored of it. About women in like these heavy periods, painful periods,
Yeah.
horrific pregnancies, postnatal depression, horrific perimenopause now, horrific menopause. There are so many stories, and it's the womb and the divine feminine trying to bring our attention back to the womb.
Yeah.
What do? We ignore it. We overwork. We medicate. We as in the railway, but it's gonna keep getting louder until we realize that we've got to live in alignment with the seasons, with
Yeah.
nature, with And I remember
Yeah.
watching a video about it. It was I wish I'd shared it, and I'm frustrated I didn't. But it was how a shaman's wife goes through her period, and I was, oh, I'm interested in this. He makes her herbs, ointments, oils. She goes and stays in another part of the house. She has showers. She has these cleansing showers to cleanse the energy, womb healing. Um,
Wow.
she's prepared the community prepare certain foods. And I'm like, if you compare us to when we're on our period, and it's like we're still working, we're still hustling, we're still eating foods we shouldn't be,
Yeah.
it's we're still out in the world, and she goes off to be cleansed and all of, and people might think, oh, that's not normal, but actually I was like, we need to get a happy medium with that and learn from that,
Yeah.
we need to have decompression when you're on your period.
Yeah. Because we're not honoring ourselves, are
Mm,
we?
mm,
And I think it's an important thing as well with animals is that, and I will say, before I kind of really dived into my
mm,
spiritual
mm,
journey, I didn't believe in reincarnation. Thought it was a load
mm.
of old rubbish. I thought when you left, you went off to heaven
Yeah,
and got to have a life of relaxing
yeah,
after
sitting on your
this.
cloud watching everybody
Yeah.
else suffer.
um, and I can't remember at what point. I think it was during my own meditation journey. I started being aware of these past lives that I had had, and I was
Mm,
like, oh, hang on, this is a thing. And then in my animal work, animals have past lives too.
yeah,
And some of them actually really struggle. They obviously wanted to come back as an animal, but some of
yeah,
them have been human and they're struggling as animals. So they're in an animal body, but they're still remembering this human side of them. And I
yeah,
think that's another area we need to work on with understanding them. If they're very vocal or they're very
mm,
unhappy about certain things, it could be because there's a past life element in there that needs healing and looking
mm,
at. So
mm.
I've got um
Yeah.
I've got a pigeon that comes to my garden, and it's so sad. I've had it coming for about 4 years, and it tries to make friends with the other pigeons, and they always like hit it on the head, or they'll be like shooing it away. And I noticed it would come down to feed late in the afternoon when
Mm,
the other birds had all gone, and it was always on its own, and I just felt this real sense of sadness with it. And when I actually tuned in and said to it, it was like, will you be my friend?
mm,
And it was really struggling because it had had this amazing life, um, as a human in a
mm,
real
mm,
like royal setting previously, where it had not wanted for anything. It lived
mm.
this lavish life, but it felt trapped, and it had
Yeah.
always said it wanted to be free so it would come back as a bird. But in coming back as this pigeon, it still had all this human baggage from its past life, and it was
Wow.
really struggling to be understood by the other birds and to understand how to be a bird. And it's funny because it's made friends with the doves that come to my garden. They have a lot more gentle,
Yeah.
kind of tolerant energy, and it will sit with them. But it's still on its own. It hasn't
Mm,
found a mate, but it
mm,
is a lot better now. But yeah, I just found that really interesting. I was like,
mm,
we forget, we assume, it's an animal.
mm,
What happened before that? Was it
mm,
always an animal? Is it
mm.
finding it hard? Like
Yeah.
we find being human difficult, they find it
Yeah.
hard too.
Yeah. Because as I'm listening to that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting because it's almost like my guides are saying it's like we get a rest. Sometimes a human maybe have gone too far into the human and they need to come back into the connection, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, and have that lifetime as an animal. Because they do say, I've done some work on where we start off as rocks and mountains and then we go into being plants. then animals out like foxes and farm animals, and then home animals. And as we're building up our consciousness and they go into an animal, coming to the home to learn about the home, and then we come into human. But then also as well being able to go back to just, you think about people that have such hectic lives or painful lives, and they need to come back, but they're just going to come back and be a tree, so they can stand
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
can just be, or just a flower.
Yeah, and
And
I
can I,
think as
yeah.
well, everything has its own struggles, doesn't it? We
Mm,
sort of, I
mm,
suppose we would think, the flower in the meadow is just in the breeze and it's happy.
mm,
But again, it's got things that want to eat it.
mm,
The sun might be too hot, there might not be enough rain. Everything's kind of navigating its own journey. And I
mm,
think humans are, we're really like really
mm,
closed
mm.
off, aren't we? We think
Yeah.
that the only experience is our experience and that we're the most important thing on the planet, when actually once we tune into that connection, everything is
Mm.
navigating life in a different way.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is really interesting, and every time I have a session with an animal I learn something new, and
Mm,
I'm like, every time I think, I'm not going to be surprised, I'm surprised again. Yeah, it's
mm,
amazing.
mm. It it's a transformational time. And do you think they're going to continue to build up their communication with us?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think a lot of them are trying, and some of the messages I get back from the wild animals, particularly, they get very frustrated with
Mm,
us because they're always trying. They're trying all the time to let us know things.
mm,
Like what you were saying about the
mm,
birds that came to
mm,
you.
mm,
If you weren't doing the work you do, you might have just been like, oh, there's a bird, and carried on your
mm,
day and
mm,
not
mm,
thought anything of it.
mm.
So they are always trying. They want to help us to understand them. It's just that we have to be open to it.
I wonder if the food system's going to collapse,
I
like
think
everything
something is
else.
going to change. Something is definitely going to change because again, it's greed, isn't it? Greed and
Mm,
profit.
mm,
Like I said, the animals say we're all part of the food chain, but then do we need it on such a massive scale? And I think that goes back to what you were saying about living with the seasons. And I feel
mm,
that so deeply at the moment,
mm,
listening to my own body, and I'll be like, what do you want to eat today? I'm finding the things it wants are the
mm,
things that are in season.
mm.
Whereas before it would be like, oh, I'm going to go and grab this.
Yeah.
You're thinking with your mind rather than listening to what your body actually wants. And so I think that we have to alter that to live more within the seasons and go back to living more simply. Just
Mm.
because everything is available doesn't mean we have to have it all.
Do you think as well that the food that we've got is too fancy for our systems? Because I'm finding this lately. I'm going into a sandwich shop, which very rarely happens now, but at a restaurant, and it's like I just want a simple meal, and it's got all of these herbs, spices, creams, ointments, whatever. It just, I mean, throw it
Yeah,
all into it, and afterwards my gut said like, what's wrong with just? I know it's meat, but a simple steak and salad. What's wrong with just a simple salad? Why has
yeah,
it got to have all this stuff thrown on it? And that I just think that we live in certain parts of the world for a reason, and we live in England, so we've got a very simple constitution, and possibly
yeah.
our ancestors had an even simpler one. And we're just everything's just, hot crisps and spicy hot crisps, and it's just like what's wrong with a bag of plain?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had probably, it was about, I want to say it was probably about maybe 12 years ago now. Overnight, I couldn't eat spicy food anymore. I
Mm,
never
mm,
really loved like super spicy food, but
mm,
even mildly spicy,
mm,
couldn't do it anymore. It would upset me. And yeah, I think as we're changing and we're kind of
mm,
evolving, our bodies are we're it's like our bodies are going to shout louder for us to
mm,
pay
mm,
attention to
mm,
them as well.
mm,
um I've got this really lovely book. It's called Think Indigenous,
mm,
and it's written by an Indigenous person who's kind of, sharing the way that they honored the land and the animals, and they worked
mm,
with the energy and how, they would eat and they would rest, all in alignment with themselves.
mm,
And I think that's what we've got to go back to.
mm,
We're so disconnected from ourselves.
mm.
um and I think also we have so much, like additives and things in the food that
Yeah.
mask what things should taste like. I know someone who I gave some organic grapes to. They'd had supermarket grapes and they were
Mm,
like, oh, these taste weird. what do you mean they taste weird? Well, they don't taste like the supermarket ones. And I was like, no, because they don't have
Mm,
any pesticides or anything on them. Like, this is what real fruit tastes like.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's learning, isn't it? It's learning that a lot of the stuff we've had isn't good for us. And as much as
Mm,
we like it, we need to start listening to ourselves as well. And the
mm,
same with animal food. There's a lot of really toxic animal food
mm,
marketed as,
mm,
being great just because it's marketed as that. We need to actually look at the ingredients and
mm,
are we nourishing our animals? What are we
mm.
giving them? Or are we just giving them stuff because it's cheap and it's easy?
Yeah, because I don't know whether it was true because it was TikTok, but I saw a thing. She claimed her husband worked in an egg factory, and she said, you know, when you go and you buy your golden oaks, she said, stop it because they're feeding them paprika. Or it was some other herb that was
Oh,
red to make the oaks golden, and it was like I at the time loved a golden oak, and I was like, but made me feel weird, and I
yeah.
was like. God, yeah, it stands to reason. Should we be really be having these golden oaks that are like now we could see golden oaks as a sign that they're healthy. You could also see
Yeah.
golden oaks as a sign of is that really normal?
There's a lot of clever marketing out there as
Yeah, and
well.
it's like, oh my God.
I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on Instagram. Someone did a post about what vegetables and fruit actually look like before they kind of got meddled with. You know how they
Yeah.
do a lot of the modification, don't they, with stuff so that it tastes better, looks
Mm.
better. Um, and some of the fruit and things that you see, like I'd completely forgotten. Do you remember that bananas used to have seeds in? I'd completely forgotten about that. As a kid, yeah, they did. The bananas always had seeds in. They don't now.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
But we've
If you cut them
everything's
down the
to please
middle,
our
you could see
eyes.
it going down the middle.
Yeah. And there are all these
Oh.
all these different fruits and veg. And I was like, oh my gosh, they look nothing like the things that we're eating now. So we're meddling too much in nature, I think. And I think that's going to
Oh.
become quite apparent and it will have to change.
Well, Frankenstein. We're messing with nature too much and
Yeah.
creating Frankenstein. Was it Frankenstein's monster? Was it Frankenstein that made the monster? I don't know. I've not read that book, but I need to.
No,
Look in the
yeah.
comments. Somebody will let me know. Yeah, but that book was a warning to leave alone. We're meddling way too much, and
Yeah.
science is great, but it's been hijacked.
Yeah, and it's the same like with dog food. You've got so
Mm.
many dogs
Oh
now
yeah.
that have got allergies and skin issues, and we wonder why. But we're not feeding them species appropriate diets. We're giving
No.
them convenience food because it's easier for us to just chuck some kibble in a bowl and go off to work.
Mm,
Is that
mm,
really good for the dog? We need to be thinking, what are we nourishing ourselves? And I
mm,
think you generally find people that are perhaps not so in tune with themselves that are not giving
mm.
themselves the best food, they're also not giving their pets the best food either. So
No, no.
yeah, we need to overhaul all of it, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Because the ready meals need banning anyway.
Yeah.
Ready meals, it needs banning. And like you said, with dog food, and I don't know anything about dog food, but I worked with a woman years ago, and she used to eat. I don't know if this is a good thing, but she used to feed them raw meat.
Yeah, that's what they
Um,
would normally eat.
but yeah, like you said, I'm like, oh, God, they're going to start eating humans. That's what I thought at the
Yeah.
time. Don't give them the taste of blood. But actually, back in the day, they'd have been eating raw meat.
Yeah. Yeah, they would. And I
Would
think
have been
that's the thing as
eating
well.
pedigree
People,
with jelly and chunks and fake
yeah,
gravy and all that shit. They
it's
wouldn't have been
horrible.
doing it.
But I think like I really struggle with the people that are like, oh, my dog's vegan. No, you
Oh.
can be vegan. That's your choice. Your dog is wanting to eat what it should be eating as nature intended.
If a squirrel gets splashed on the pavement, and a bird will come and eat it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need to step away. It's like we were saying earlier about humanizing.
Mm, mm,
We're we're putting our thoughts onto our animals. We have to be very careful about that by saying, oh yeah, they don't like raw meat. Is
mm,
it them or is it that you don't like
mm,
preparing it for
mm.
them? I remember when my dog was a puppy doing tripe for her, and I can't count the mornings at 5 a.m. when I was nearly throwing up in my kitchen serving up tripe, but it was nourishing. It was what she needed, so
Yeah,
that's what she had.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was reared on tripe. My dad worked in the meat industry, and he was 80s, and he used to bring tripe home a lot.
Yeah, I think that's
Vinegar,
a real
salt, and
northern
pepper. There was
thing.
little Claire with her pigtails on. I used to eat. I loved it. I loved it. Whereas they got to a stage where one particular day I was eating it and my body just went. I didn't know what it was back then. I was only little, but it was obviously something energetic that clicked and went, "What am I eating?"
Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah, I were reared on tripe.
Yeah, I remember actually. I remember being in a dog friendly pub up in the Peak District when my dog was only young, and this chap came over and I can't remember how he started talking, but he said something about we were talking about what she was having, and I was like, "Oh, the tripe's the worst," and he was like, "You do know up here that was a delicacy. We used
Mm,
to have a bit of tripe on a
mm,
morning," and I was like,
mm.
"Oh,
Yeah, it
but
was. It
yeah,
was. It was delicacy. It was like excitement food and like mucky dripping as well. Oof, oof.
yeah,
It's still a big thing in Yorkshire, is that mucky dripping, I think.
is it?"
Yeah, but ooh. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? All the things that were delicacies and that now we look at, but we've got things that weren't delicacies that are now delicacies that,
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
yeah, and I think it's things as well. We have to be careful with like, the internet culture of making things popular. Like, why is
Mm,
it being made popular?
mm,
Um, but again, it comes back to listening to yourself. Do I
mm,
really want to eat that? What's my
mm,
body saying? How do I
mm,
feel? I sometimes do it. You know, if I did it out loud, people would think I was nuts. But sometimes I'll say to myself, give myself two options for lunch. Be like, what do you want? Do you want this or do you want this? And if
mm,
you wait a few minutes, you'll feel it in your body. Your body's like, yes, I want that, or oh
yeah.
no, that's not what I want to eat.
Mm. And how your body rejects it as well. And as well, this is a true thing. If you eat meat, sometimes your body can pick up on the animal. I
Yeah,
get that sometimes. And when I first did my shamanic training, it was horrible. I'd literally be preparing a lamb, and the lamb would come and run around my ankles, and I'd be like, I can't eat it. I can't
yeah,
eat it. Or I'd be having cream and stuff and milk, and it was like I can't. I could feel the rape in it. I could feel the fact that that was for an animal, not me. And it was just like, or I could hear like beef preparing beef, and I could hear the gunshot and everything. It's like, oh God, this job's shit. Take me back to being a dental nurse.
yeah. It's hard, isn't it? I used to used to have a housemate who he worked for a big poultry farm, and he used to drink a lot. He was the nicest guy, but he
Mm,
said to me, I come home and I have to drink because it is so traumatic working in that place. He said, and they don't, it's not just a case of rearing the animals and slaughtering them. I think some people, probably not the nicest people, they're actually not very kind to the animals
yeah.
during the in-between.
Mm,
And I remember him saying there was this one turkey that he'd managed to save it from slaughter. He'd become like friends with this
mm,
turkey and it would follow him around, and he'd saved it from slaughter three times. And he was like, every single time time's approaching, I make
mm,
sure to take the turkey and we head off.
mm,
But yeah, it made him really depressed. And he was such a nice guy. And I said to him, why'd you do it? And he said, because right now it's providing money for me to get me out of my
mm.
situation. And he was like, but I'm kind. When I'm there, I'm kind.
He's needed there, isn't he?
Yeah. And I think that's important, even if we see stuff that's going on that's not so nice, we
Mm,
can send that loving intention
mm,
to it, even
mm,
if we can't physically do anything. um yeah, we can definitely send that good energy, and to always kind of hope that people's minds will be opened, their hearts will be opened, and that
mm,
they will learn and understand
mm.
more, so that we treat things with more respect and more kindly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We're on a learning curve, and it's going to be interesting. But I think more and more people. I mean, I'm not be vegan, but we're transitioning. I know we are. I mean, we obviously know that we don't do dairy anymore. I do
Yeah,
a little bit, but not like I was. But all the sinus issues that I had and all of that coming off the wheat, all of that stopped. I have a little bit of allergy now and again. Sometimes when the moon's like it is now, but it's just shocked me. Like literally, my eyes would just pour.
yeah.
And it's either something in the wheat or it was in the dairy that wasn't agreeing with me. But I think we're all transitioning to at least a vegetarian life.
Yeah, and I think people will, if they actually do listen to their bodies and they
Mm,
don't try to kind of like, brush it off as something that needs to just be fixed. If we actually look at, what are we trying to say? What are we
mm,
teaching
mm,
ourselves?
mm,
And we won't always get it right. I think that's the thing. Even with our animals, I grew up with dogs, but having my own dog as an adult
mm,
was a very different experience. And I'm learning all the time. And
mm,
people often think, I did a post ages ago about it. They think, oh, you can communicate with animals. It must be really easy to have your own dog.
Mm,
But it's not, because there'll
mm,
be, like I
mm,
said to you, when she didn't tell me about her paw because she didn't want to
mm,
bother me.
mm,
Or there'll be times when she's not feeling her best. Perhaps she's just tired, or,
mm,
we get days when we don't want to interact. She won't talk to me. It's like, no.
mm,
And so, it's not always easy, but we're learning as we go, aren't we? We're
mm,
we're all
mm.
learning, and we're learning about ourselves. I think the main thing is we've got to learn about ourselves before we can learn about anything else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It's interesting. We're going to a vegan festival for the first time ever this year as well in
Who are
May.
you?
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. Because again, when you've no idea about it, you come in blind about the different ways of cooking and food you can have, and
Yeah, and it's something that's really interesting as well. I used to work with a lady who we'd pop out for lunch together sometimes, and she'd always take me to like the vegan places and be like,
mm,
try this, try that.
mm,
And you actually realize that there's so many more things that you can cook with. Like, I love cooking with herbs and spices now that I
yeah,
didn't really,
yeah,
things I wouldn't have even thought about before. And
mm-hmm,
again, it's
mm,
like you were saying about having too much choice and fancy things.
mm,
I think sometimes simple and what's available in nature is
mm,
actually, it's the most nourishing, but also it's
mm,
really tasty, and we don't
mm,
realize that.
definitely. Yeah, there is a difference because I do follow a few vegan things on Instagram, and some of the food they do is like it does look fancy, but it's fancy, I think, in the right way than going to get a sandwich from Greg's that back in the day, this is my bugbear, used to be simple wholemeal bread,
Yeah.
simple chicken, mayonnaise, simple lettuce, simple tomato and cucumber. And I loved them. I lived off them when I used to work in the nursing home and work shifts. Whereas now it's this weird lettuce that doesn't taste nice,
Mhm.
that it's this weird cheap butter they use. It's horrible chicken that's not what it used to be. It's just not. It's like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And I think as well, we have to remember when we're buying stuff like that,
Mm,
you've then got a whole chain of energy. So not only if
mm,
you're having animal products, you've got the energy from the animal and the
mm,
way it was slaughtered.
mm, mm,
You've also got the person in the
mm,
factory that put that together. Were they
mm,
angry? Do they hate their job? Well, that's all going into
mm,
it. So by the time it gets to you and you're eating it, that's a lot of stuff for you to be
mm,
taking in. So
mm.
it's not just, is the food nourishing? It's like, what else went into it? And
Ah,
I do so much more home cooking now.
mm,
I love cooking. Even
mm,
it's mostly down to like pesticides and additives and
mm,
things like
mm,
that I wanted to strip it all back and eat more nourishing stuff.
mm,
But it's actually a really lovely process, because I
mm,
think when you're cooking, you're being really mindful, aren't you, of what
mm,
you're doing? And
mm,
it's like it
mm,
gives you that peace from kind of like the outside noise and from your day-to-day busyness. You're
mm,
actually in the zone of like making something, and then you
mm.
can enjoy it, and you made it and put all that goodness into it. So
Definitely, definitely. Rather than, getting a sandwich that you just like you say, and it's been on that shelf, and all those people that are walking past it, looking, oh, I
yeah,
don't like, look at that. Do you know what I mean? It's when we once went one holiday last year, was it? It was in Scotland. And we were in a fridge section looking for sandwiches because there was no else to look at. And this man came to this fridge here, which was like the gluten-free stuff, and he like pushed in. But he opened the door and he was just fuming, and he could feel the energy. And I turned to Gary, I said, let's go get some fresh stuff, make our own sandwiches, and
yeah,
take it back to the hotel because he has just unloaded a whole host of energy into that fridge. And it was
yeah,
like, imagine coming after him and eating it, and it's in your gut, and you're feeling diarrhea and sickly, or you start to rage up. It happens.
yeah.
I was once in a foul mood years ago, and I was making a cake, and I thought that'll calm me down if I make a cake. So I'm making this cake, and I was raging. I won't do it now, and my cake went off. It just the mixture curdled.
Oh wow.
It just went in the bowl. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, shit, and I had to chuck it away. And I actually didn't make another one. I went and just chilled out.
Yeah, I think it's the
Yeah.
same as like anything really. Like
Mm,
even like if you dye your own hair or cut your own hair,
mm, mm.
don't want to do that when you're in a bad mood either. Like,
Well, yeah, this is about hairdressers as well. That's why I keep it simple now.
yeah,
Because, your crown chakra and your third eye and all your channeling systems are there, and you've got some hairdresser coming in. That's why I don't dye anymore. I don't dye my hair because I
yeah,
was just conscious of sat in there hours, and it's just like one of the reasons why I don't do it. And it's just like I can't deal with this.
yeah. It's weird. I
Um,
think once you start tuning in more to everything being energy,
mm,
I always see it like you know, if you ever go to like the science museum and they've got that ball
Mm,
where you put your hand on it and all the energy comes out to your
mm,
hand,
mm,
I always view it like that. Like our energy is like little fingers of light going out to
mm,
everything we're
mm,
doing.
mm,
And energy from everything else is
mm,
interacting with us all of the time. So once you start looking at it like that, you realize what an impact we're all
mm,
having on each
mm,
other.
mm,
And even like I know you talk a lot about it on your channels about, you know, constantly like being in watching the news or scrolling
mm,
on social media, you're getting that energy of like the
mm,
chaos. And
mm,
even if you feel quite comfortable and happy and you're happy in your job,
mm,
you're still picking up on that, aren't you, at a
mm,
subconscious level?
mm,
It's still going to
mm.
affect you.
Definitely. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. And all that affects our animals as well
Mm,
in
mm,
the home. You know,
mm,
it's I always say it's really different. Like for animals, wild animals and animals like you know, sheep and pigs and horses, animals that spend a lot of time
mm,
outside,
mm,
it's much more easy for them because they're connected to the earth still. They get to ground
mm,
and they can have that
mm,
release. Whereas with the animals that are in our home, like I said earlier, it's almost like they're trapped with
mm,
us.
mm,
um they need that time as well. They need to decompress. They
mhm,
need, you know, if their animals, say like it's a rabbit in a hutch, perhaps it needs to come out and run around the
mm,
garden. They also need to ground because they're picking up on all of our stuff while
mhm.
still trying to navigate their own journey. um you know, it's important to kind of like every day I get up and I'll have my windows open for hours, no matter
Yeah,
what time of
yeah,
year it is,
yeah.
because I
Same
think it's
here.
important. You want to get the
Yeah,
energy through
yeah.
and out, don't you? Refreshing from the previous day. And I think people forget that animals need that. Even
Mm,
it's hard if you live in a city or you live in a flat.
mm,
But again, think about the kind of animal that fits into your
mm,
lifestyle. Just
mm,
because we want one doesn't mean that they should
mm.
be our companion.
Yeah,
It's what's kind for them as well.
it's true. It's true. And it's a lot. We've got a lot to unpack, haven't we? And a lot to, as we're coming back to our natural way of, and I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's our natural way of being.
Yeah.
It's the animal's natural way of being, and somehow meeting in the middle to get harmony, and and it ripples out into the rest of your world. When you're not in your natural way of being, your rest of your life isn't.
Yeah, and it's funny because the more you kind of align with that, you find that things just seem to flow. Like you can feel that calm within
Mm,
yourself, and then even if everything's chaotic in the world, you can feel that it's affecting you less
mm,
because you have
mm,
that inner calm where you're
mm,
flowing with the way that your life should naturally
mm,
be. Yeah, I
mm,
totally agree
mm,
with that.
mm. Yeah. No matter what it is that you see in the world, you can see it and feel the shock, the rage, or the anger, but then you can transition through it quickly. It's why
Yeah,
so many people are stuck in rage over so many things at the minute. I think it's good when they get triggered, but to stay in that trigger, it's not good because you're not learning the lesson.
yeah. I found I was doing it myself. I was like, you know, you'd hear like governments doing this, and you'd keep
Mm,
diving back in to be like, oh God, I hate this. Ugh. And you keep going back in to see
mm,
what else is happening. And then you find like you're just feeling angry all the time. But I think it's really important to be the observer, isn't
mm,
it?
mm,
And I
mm,
think animals actually really help with that because
mm,
especially if you have a dog, or if say if you're like a horse rider, you're someone that you're going to have to go out with them.
mm,
They're making you take that break from the day to day and to get
mm,
back out and to
mm,
connect. And I think it's important. I know a lot of people will perhaps it's the only time they can do it, but they'll go out into nature with their dog, and they're either on their phone or they've got their earphones in and they're on a podcast. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
connect with nature,
mm,
connect with your animal. You know, you're with your animal.
mm.
That use that as a bonding time. It's really important. I'm like
Same.
a mad woman on my dog walk. I have talking out loud to my dog the entire way.
Yeah.
We stopped to see a little muntjac deer. It was last summer down this little alley. It just appeared in front of us, and we were like, "Oh, look, isn't that lovely?" And I'm saying to my dog, "It's a little deer." We're having this whole conversation out loud, and I
Mm.
suddenly heard this chuckle, and I turned around, and there was a runner behind me. Must have thought I was mental, but I was like, "But this is my bonding time."
Yeah, this
We're
is you're the one that's normal. That's the thing.
yeah,
Yeah. But you see that with mums and that they're pushchairs at the minute, which is a real,
yeah,
but it's something I'm having to deal with. But it's seeing the amount of mums with pushchairs that are just
yeah. It's so sad.
like literally danger stations as well near roads, and you just think you'll regret that when that child grows up, when they cut contact, you're going to regret that because
Yeah.
you're not building those necessary systems now when they're young, and you'll wait until you're getting pushed out of everything when you're older. It's because you've not bonded in those young years.
Yeah, and I see it with little children as
Mm,
well, walking to school, and the mums are either chatting amongst the adults or they're
mm,
kind of dragging the child along. And like you said, they're on their
mm,
phone. And I
mm,
think that's really sad because what if that little boy or girl is scared about something? What if
mm,
something has happened at school
mm,
and they just really need
mm,
reassurance and they want
mm,
to talk about it to help them before they start another day? Yeah,
mm.
we're missing out on that. But I think we miss out on our own lives, don't we? Because rather than sit and go through our own day and address the things that have stressed us out, we'll watch
Mm,
YouTube or
mm,
scroll on
mm,
our phones.
mm,
And I always say, like, we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're so
mm,
disconnected from ourselves
mm,
and from each other.
mm,
I
mm.
think we need to find a balance somewhere.
Yeah, when we're struggling to connect with ourselves, we're going to struggle to connect with each other, and
Yeah.
yeah, we're on a slippery slope. But we're coming back up. We're coming. I think there's change happening, but we've also got a lot of triggers to go through.
Yeah. And
Um,
I see a lot in the animal kingdom. I do see a lot of, there's a lot of awful stories about animals
mm,
abandoned, abused. And while we should be aware of that, it's a bit the same as what we were saying about in our own lives. You don't want to stay in that because
mm, mm,
you're getting
mm,
upset, you're not
mm,
helping. But I'm seeing a lot of people doing amazing work to help
mm,
animals and to make people aware, that
mm,
they do deserve love and happiness
mm,
and patience.
mm,
And I think that, like I said, the animal kingdom is going to be more present. We're going
mm,
to start noticing it more, even if when we're out and about, we start seeing, animals approaching us, or,
mm,
like they'll come to you because they know you do Reiki and they need some
mm,
help from you.
mm,
They also sense when we need something. And just, I posted yesterday, I had this lovely interaction
mm.
with a little robin on my dog walk. I was walking along and it suddenly appeared on this branch, like right near my face, and it was just singing away to me for like
Oh,
5 minutes. We just stood there looking at each other, and it really lifted my mood. It's little things like that. If we're open to seeing it, they're
mm,
going to be coming in to teach us a lot
mm.
more.
Definitely, definitely, and we're going to get more and more of it.
Yeah.
And which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. It's been a good chat today, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been really nice.
And do you know
I find it
the time's
interesting. And
flown as I'm just checking my your wall.
yeah, yeah,
We're wrapping up at 11:11 as well, which is I
that's
like that.
nice.
If I like it when I finish a video at a time like that.
Yeah, it's
When I
good.
start it, I know we're being on point. So yeah, I will get all your details and I will put them. So if you want to follow Rebekah, you can on a website, YouTube, Instagram. I'll put beneath this video. And then you can follow her because I
Yeah,
think
lovely.
especially
Thank
if you've
you.
got pets and stuff or animals, or you just want to learn more about connection.
Yeah, I think it's
And
really helpful for us to understand our animals because then we can build a better relationship
mm,
with them. We bring more to each other's lives by
mm,
understanding them.
mm,
And it can help as well with, like, with rescue animals and things like
mm,
that, to clear some of that old dense energy and help them know that they are safe, and to
mm,
let them
mm,
know what they need from you in order to
mm,
to have a happier life.
and making a safe home and a safe garden for animals.
Yeah.
Or we were talking about rats the other day. Well, I found a
Yeah.
rat in the garden the other day. I was in the gym and I was like, oh, there's a squirrel in the grass there, and then and I was, no, it's not a squirrel.
Oh.
And I told you about my old house, and I was like, not again. I can't deal with that
Yeah.
again. And I
Yeah.
actually spoke to it and said, I get why you're coming through, and it is a safe space, but don't stay.
Yeah. No, I did that.
Don't
Mine
don't
have
do
gone.
what
I
you did
said to
in
you, I
the
had them
last house
back.
where they were breeding like rats.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing. I said
Yeah,
to them, if you really need the food, but the fields are growing again now, it's going to be really nice. And mine
yeah,
have gone. They've gone
yeah,
now. So they
yeah,
obviously they did need the food when they came, but
yeah,
they've gone.
yeah. Fingers. It's awful, isn't it? But it's like, yeah, you can't have a garden full of rats, can you?
No, and I think one of the really big things we have to remember is, well, and I used to, in my younger years, I used to think nothing of splatting a spider. I used to be really scared of
Mm,
spiders, and I'd be like,
mm,
oh, spider, squash. And even
yeah,
talking to spiders now, they have personalities, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever did that. But I think where we view things as pests, we've got to remember we've encroached on their land. We're
yeah,
building and building in nature. So they're going to exist with us. They're trying to exist with us. And we're the ones that are like, oh, we don't want you in our space, but we're
yeah,
in their space. We need
yeah.
to look very differently at, we're not the most important thing and we weren't here
Mm,
first.
mm. I had a
Yeah.
weird energy because I'm scared of spiders. And I was walking about, I had like my socks on. And then when I say I stood on it, I didn't splatter. It was accident. And it went under my toes.
Oh
I
yeah.
felt it go like that.
Oh
But I swear to God, the energy in it. And I was like, at first I thought I'd stood on a marble. That's what it felt like. So I lifted my foot up and it went, and it ran up.
oh
And I was like, if you'd have said to me, put that on your hand, I would not have been able to do it.
yeah.
But the energy and the love that came from that spider, I actually wanted to do it again, not stand on it, but because the human brain is so wired, it was
Yeah.
like, wow, the energy that was coming from it was like, yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing little
Mm,
things.
mm,
And again, they help.
mm,
We
mm,
forget that. We don't like
mm.
flies in the house. Have
No,
some
but they,
spiders.
yeah,
They help you out.
yeah.
I said nothing is here to cause us a problem.
Mm,
It's just the way that we've been conditioned to view things. Like
mm,
I did a post on Instagram a while back. I had this really unexpected interaction with a tick
yeah.
that I removed from my dog, and I was like, "Oh, disgusting things, get rid of that." And it was suddenly speaking to me, and I was like, "Oh no."
Oh,
And
yeah.
then I just realized that, it's not the ticks that spread disease. The
Mm,
animals are compromised that it
mm,
feeds on
mm,
because of all the pesticides and things that humans spray.
mm, mm,
So it's just, yeah, it's just rejigging the way we think about
mm.
things to be a bit more understanding.
Yeah, like the weed killer, because the fairies won't
Yeah.
come in the garden if there's a weed killer, they kick right off.
Yeah.
So there's no more weed killer now. You have to. Well, we've got a crazy paving path that we spent a lot of money on, and it's like because we live in Lincoln, there's a lot of moss,
Yeah.
and it's like previous Claire would have been like, "Let's get the weed killer out." It's the spring, and it's like actually clean it up to a point, but we can't go out with the weed killer.
Yeah. I know.
It's
I
like,
was the same.
yeah,
Yeah. I
you
was the
can't do
same. I used
it.
to spray it everywhere. And then I found out that it killed the bees.
Mm,
And then, further down my journey, I was
mm,
like, hang on a minute. They're not weeds. A lot of them are
mm.
medicinal, aren't they? And
Yeah,
their
yeah,
nature, they
yeah.
all have feelings. And I'm the same as you. I've got paving out the front of my house, and it will get lots of weeds, but like the dandelions will come up, and I always leave them until the flowers have died off so that
Mm,
they can
mm,
be food for the
mm,
bees.
mm,
But then I'll say to them, thanks for coming. I'm going to remove you. Would that be okay to
mm,
remove you? And
mm,
they'll let you know.
mm.
Sometimes they're like, oh, I want to be here a bit longer, or they're like, oh, I understand. That's fine. It's
Yeah,
about working in harmony with everything and
yeah.
respecting everything.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember my old house. It was very different then. In my old house, I was cutting the grass in a mood again. It's not like I'm always in a mood, but I was in a mood and I heard, you're cutting grass, be more mindful. And I wasn't. I was in a right mood. And all of a sudden, poosh, a stone got thrown at my head. And it was a little elf in the garden that was like,
Oh,
watch what you're doing, because they can turn. And
yeah.
I was like, oh my God. It's like the the elemental kingdom and the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, and they don't take shit. And it was like, okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Slow down.
Yeah. I think it is because humans have this, I don't know, we have this real self-importance, don't we?
Mm,
Like we're the be all and end all. Humans are the most amazing thing on the planet. And
mm.
it's like, actually, no, we're not. We've got quite a lot to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. One final story before we go, because I bet you'll love this. When we moved into our old house, there was a pond that had the filter had broken in it. The old owner didn't replace it, and we said, "Oh, is that a working pond?" He said it was, but it's not now. It's a swamp. So we moved into the house and I was doing all the land clearing and the raking. I was in the garden doing some raking, watering the garden, talking to the garden. And all of a sudden I had a at the side of me and I was like, I looked at the pond. I was like, I thought I heard something. So shh. And then I heard it again. I was like, and I walked over to the pond and the fish had come up from the bottom.
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh, shit. And at the time I had a friend whose son did, thank God, aquatics and pond clearance. And I was like, I need him to come. I said, we didn't even realise it was we just thought it was a swamp, and
Yeah.
all that. And he came in and he very carefully drained the top of it. And he said, this is weird. He said, because this shouldn't have happened. He said, but somehow he said, I don't, because he wasn't an energy person. And he cleared it all out. He scooped the fish out, put them in the thing,
Oh,
changed the water. We got a filter, and it was like, whoa.
that's amazing.
If I'd have just been a muggle, that had
You
just
just left it, or
drained, filled
yeah.
in, and there was life in there.
Wow.
Yeah, and there were
Yeah.
big fish as well. They were like goldfish, but they were big fish. And he was like, I've never seen them as big as this.
Yeah, because you would have thought they would have got sick,
Mm,
wouldn't you, and died.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
when I was
maybe they
out,
were waiting for you. They were
yeah,
waiting for you to recognize them and to clear that old energy out so they could have a fresh start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Oh, that's
fascinating.
lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody, thanks for watching.
No, it's been so nice. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, like I said, all your information will be down in the description box and the pinned comment. And yeah, we'll be doing this again at some point.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Definitely.
Fab.
Yeah, put in the comments, people, of what you'd like us to talk about next time.
Yeah,
Doing
if
the
there's any
animal
specific
kingdom.
animals that
Yeah.
you're interested to know about, any animals you might have been scared of that you want to kind of understand better.
Yeah, like we do a Q&A.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because there's a lot of fear around animals and
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please do like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.